What's going on, everybody? And welcome to the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. Empower your purpose with Raymond. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday from 12 to 2. You guys can turn on your live notifications so you don't miss a single second of the Word on Woodward. You guys, we have a great show planned for you today. We're going to have Red Wings D-man Alex Biega, Dana Wakiji, former Tiger Andy Dirks, and Athletics NHL prospect guru Corey Prodman, and much more. Like I said, very exciting show. So we're going to get right into things. Let's bring in our co-host, Art Regner, and get right into the big three presented by Chevy. Art, how you doing today? I know you needed the weekend to kind of cool down, and we'll get to that in just a little bit, but how you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I mean, typical NHL BS, on Friday night. I mean, this league just can't, just when you think they're taking a step forward, they shoot themselves in the foot. And, what occurred on Friday night was an absolute travesty. I haven't really changed or calmed down that much from Friday night.
Okay, well, we're going to get into that in just a minute. But before we get into our big three topics, Comerica Park is getting ready for baseball to return. You can see the cars there, the Chevrolet vehicles getting ready to go up on the fountain, and baseball is officially back, Art. I think that's a great sign. They're getting Comerica Park ready. The guys are going to be showing up soon. I'm really excited.
Well, I certainly am too. We need something. I mean, something to pick us up. Watching the Tigers play, whether or not it's in front of fans or not, is secondary at this point. We need some competitive sports. We need to see one of the Detroit teams take their field of play, and it's great. Hopefully, this all works out. Everything goes good. COVID-19 can be in check. Not only here in Michigan, I mean, all over the country. I mean, it's just not the Tigers. Everything can be going well in our state, but this is a pandemic. So, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the Tigers can do this season in a 60-game schedule, and having baseball back certainly is going to be a shot in the arm to, I think, to everybody. I think the community in general. I mean, what we've gone through the last, 3-4 months. I just think that whether you're a baseball fan or not, having the Tigers playing like they should be playing in June of every year is a good thing.
It is, Art. Now let's get into our first topic of the big three today, which is the NHL Draft Lottery. We're going to let you talk about it right now, Art. I feel the same way you do. And I got to tell you, I was watching you guys live after the draft lottery, and I respected how heated you were because I felt the exact same way. It's obviously a bummer that the Red Wings fell to 4, but that was something that was expected. We weren't so surprised that that happened. But the thing that doesn't sit well with me is that a team that has made the 2014 playoff expanded playoff system here is going to pick at number one and is probably going to get Alexi Lafreniere. It just, that part doesn't make sense to me, Art, and I feel the same way you do when it comes to that.
Well, it's completely absurd. It's a travesty. I mean, we can go on and on and on and say what a grave mistake this is. I know that there's some people, wow, this is exciting. You don't know. What is not exciting? Because the draft is supposed to help teams that are on the bottom, is that quite possibly, the team with the ninth best record in the league, ninth best out of 31 teams, can have the number one pick. That's a joke. That's an utter joke. I'm sure when they were in their smoke-filled rooms in the NHL, they first came out with the plan where the Red Wings could fall no further than 2. Boy, that seemed like yesteryear. That was a great idea. Hey, who wouldn't be for that? And then they come back with the same asinine plan that they've always had, which is not fair. The Red Wings have qualified. Get this, Daniela. The Red Wings, unfortunately, have qualified for the draft lottery 4 times. 4 times. They've fallen combined a total of 8 spots. If you go back, they fell once, they fell 3 this time, all right? Twice they've fallen 2 times. So you put that together, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then they've fallen 1 spot, which is 8. No other team in the league has fallen as far as Detroit in the last 4 draft lotteries combined. Then if you take, I mean, this is just ridiculous. It's truly ridiculous. It affects the credibility of the league, and it takes away from the spirit of what a draft is supposed to be. And, if Pittsburgh or, God bless Ken Holland, if Edmonton gets it or Toronto, I mean, Alex Lafreniere has to feel like it was Christmas Day for him. Because in a sense, there's not going to be that much pressure on him. He's going to be the number 1 overall pick. But if you go to a franchise, and granted, we would have been hounding the poor kid all the time. Oh, what are you going to turn the Red Wings around? You're the difference maker. You're the next Steve Yzerman. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, granted, and he would have gotten tired of that really, really quickly. You put him in Pittsburgh's lineup. Hey, I got Malkin and Crosby. I've got, he has a good team around him, I guess is what I'm saying. And that should not be the case. I can't stress to you enough how embarrassing this is for the NHL. They might, all their little minions and everybody could be, waving the NHL pennants and telling you, oh, this is a great thing. We're going to have another draft. And isn't that going to be exciting? No, it's not, because it destroys what the draft is supposed to be. This is completely and utterly terrible. It's a joke. It shouldn't have happened. They've got to change the system. There is no way that a team that qualified for the playoffs, and it's the playoffs, granted it's expanded, it's still a playoff team. Every team, somebody that's going to get the number 1 pick is playing for the Stanley Cup. They're playing for it. They're not going to win it because they're going to get the number 1 pick, but they're still playing for the Stanley Cup. Think about that. Think about it. Unless it was a trade, let's say, Steve lost his mind last year and decided to trade, his number 1 pick to somebody, which he wouldn't do. But, okay, if it happens organically if it's natural, okay, fine. All right. Okay. Hey, good luck. You guys made a great trade, and, you're a playoff team, and boom, you could get the number 1 pick. But this is wrong. This is just plain and blatantly wrong. And, and I think Steve's way too classy to say it, but I've got to think that he's got to be steaming. I've got to think everyone in the Red Wing organization is steaming. I've got to think that all the 7 teams that were in the draft lottery are kind of steaming, even though LA went up too. I mean, this is just wrong. It's just wrong. It's stupid, and it's wrong, and it should never happen. And the NHL better get their act together if they want to be considered a major sports league and get this draft right, because this is totally a travesty. I mean, I knew for a fact. Look at this. Bill Daly. Oh, it's the NHL logo. Well, hey, surprise, surprise. I don't know how they can be happy about that. Seriously, placeholder team. Hey, who has the number 1 pick in the NHL draft? Didn't they have the lottery on Friday? Oh, you bet they did. But no, they don't have a number 1 pick because they're such a screwed up league. They've decided to, include virtually everybody and their brother in the draft lottery this year. And boom, here we go. Yeah, there we are.
We're going to talk more about this in the show. But one more point I wanted to make. I found it almost crazy. Actually, it was crazy that neither Ottawa nor Detroit got one of the top 2 picks. Ottawa had basically 2 shots at it and still fell to 3 and 5. And then Detroit obviously filled in that 4th. Just seemed crazy.
Well, the funny thing is if Ottawa didn't have San Jose's pick, they fell 3 spots too. The 2 top teams both fell 3 spots. They couldn't go any lower than they did. Ottawa at 5, Detroit at 4. Now, they made that Erik Karlsson deal. San Jose stayed. San Jose, if they didn't make the Karlsson deal or the number 1 draft pick wasn't part of that deal, Ottawa would be picking 3rd. The Kings made out. Now, I know I keep saying this. The only solace, if you're a Red Wings fan, that you could have is if LA decides to go defense. Now, Rob Blake, their general manager, great hockey player, along with Lucky Luke, Robitaille, they said that they're looking at 4 players in that spot. I have to think that they were looking at four players when they were drafting number 5. I hope and I pray that they take Jamie Drysdale at 2nd. That means that Byfield or Stützle will fall to Detroit at 4 because Detroit will take a forward there. No problem. But I can't see there's, the top 3 forwards are so much. There's you have the top 3 and then you have a little bit of a dividing line. They're all great players. Don't get me wrong. But those 3 are kind of almost standalone picks. I can't see LA passing on them. Now that I've thought about it, but maybe, just maybe, Jamie Drysdale is that good and they take him at 2. That would be great. Because what's going to happen at 4 is that it's wide open now. It's absolutely wide open. After if the top 3 go, Lafreniere, Stützle, and Byfield, Detroit at 4 has a lot of players, a plethora of players to pick from high-end forwards to defensemen. Does Steve? I don't think he's going to do this, but let's throw Askarov in the mix. Just the Russian goaltender. Does he just say, "Hey, look, what happened on Friday pushes our rebuild back, a couple of years here." If I could have got one of these 3 guys, maybe we accelerate our rebuild a little bit. But hey, we're not, instead of 2 years away, maybe we're 3, maybe we're 4 now. And, I'm getting in Steve Yzerman's mind, which is a very, I shouldn't do this. But so maybe he says, let's roll the dice on Askarov then. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but I mean, he has a lot of options, I guess is what I'm saying. And if LA goes defense, maybe the Red Wings will get one of the high-end forwards. But what happened on Friday should not have happened. It's an embarrassment to the National Hockey League any way you look at it. I mean, I know that there's guys right now. I can't wait for phase 2. And get this, Daniela, think about this. Let's say that COVID-19 rears its ugly head and they have to cancel everything. Unfortunately, sports is, Adam Silver already says if we get more players, the NBA commissioner, I'm shutting the whole thing down. Well, when the NBA decided to pause their season, the NHL, everybody followed suit. So if the NBA, in their bubble in Orlando, of all places, Florida, if COVID just is not going away, it's not controlling. We can't control it. I hope we can, and I want it. I'm not saying it. What if the NHL has to cancel it? Then what do you do with this draft?
Yeah.
Seriously, what do you do?
Well,
I mean, you got to do it again, right?
That's why I've been smiling, okay? Because I have something that might throw you for a crazy loop here. Let's say Ottawa takes their 3 and 5 picks and trades it for the number 1, and then you've got a playoff team that has the 3rd and the 5th pick. Not saying that's going to happen, but what if something like that did?
Kudos to Ottawa then. I mean, they were in a position, they used it to their advantage then. At this point, the system is flawed. What a team tries to do to rectify that system to make it better for them, I'm all for that. I'm not going to blame Ottawa. I'm not going to throw conniption if Ottawa makes that deal. Now, granted, you get a playoff team that has 3 and 5. I mean, if Ottawa really wants Lafreniere, and says, listen, we'll give you, our 2 picks at 3 and 5 for number 1. I'm pretty sure because it is a playoff team, why wouldn't you listen? Not only are you going to get one of the high-end forwards, you're either going to get Byfield or Stützle, then you're going to get maybe Jamie Drysdale, depending on what Detroit does it for. Right. That's a great deal. I mean, and who knows? Maybe Ottawa's doing that. Maybe you just put some ideas in the management team at Ottawa's their heads. I mean, I would make that deal. I don't think there's a general manager in the NHL that would not make that deal. That's a great deal. Unless this playoff team is Lafreniere is as good as we say, maybe they don't, because he fell into their lap, but maybe they do. And if they do that, they're going to get 2 they're going to get 2 top 5 picks. They give up Lafreniere to Ottawa, but, actually, I think that would be almost a brilliant move by Ottawa. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it would be a brilliant move. But yet again, there's Detroit at number 4. It's the worst. Look, I'm going to tell you something. Okay, they had an 18.5% chance, all right, of getting the number 1 pick. They had a better chance, over 50% chance of getting number 4. Does that make sense? They had a better chance of getting the 4th pick where they fell than getting the number 1 pick. That's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. It should not happen. This NHL Draft Lottery says, first of all, I think it's almost time for lotteries to go. I know for a fact players do not tank. They do not tank. There's not a hockey player. Daniela, you'll appreciate this. Even the Detroit Lions try to win football games every time they go out there. I mean, they're not going out there to lose.
Yes,
There's not a professional athlete worth this. They're not going out there to lose. They're playing for contracts. They don't want anybody to take their job, and they're competitive. That's why they're professional athletes. They play to win. They all play to win. So this tanking thing is a bunch of BS. It's a bunch of BS. Mm-hmm. Throw that out the window. Get this draft right. Make it fair. Make it competitively fair. It's not fair to your worst teams, and that's what a draft is supposed to be. It's supposed to help out the weak sisters of the league, It's supposed to help them out, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Not only didn't it happen, you have a playoff team. Again, think this, the ninth best team, the team with the ninth best record in the league could get the number one pick. How that is good for hockey, how that adds to the credibility of the NHL is a joke. I guarantee you right now, other leagues are just looking at the NHL right now and just laughing. I try to defend, hockey's a great game, but the NHL has some very, very, very weird
Kanye
things.
West on you and let you finish later. But I appreciate your heart behind this, okay? And I know all of our fans do too. I'm applauding that. That was great. I'm applauding it, Art. Great job. But we do have the big
thank you. Hopefully I can calm down now. Hopefully I can focus on the rest of the show.
You can.
You know what? In
Let's
a way,
talk about
if we want the big one. The Red Wings got the big one on Friday. That's for sure.
Yeah. So the number 2 topic, Art, some Tigers baseball. This is much more positive. The Tigers released their 60-man roster for spring training, which was actually a 58-man roster. We're all awaiting the signing of Spencer Torkelson, assuming that he will be a part of this roster as soon as he's signed. Were there any surprises to you? You're looking at all the names here, Art. Did anyone surprise you that did make the roster, or even someone that didn't that you think should be on there?
Well, actually, no. I mean, this is pretty much the way I thought it was going to go. I mean, I'm really excited to see, Riley Green and Dylan Dingler and Paredes and, Cameron and, of course, the Torque man, and then the young arms in camp. I want to see, Alex Faedo, our buddy. He was really great when we had him on the show. And, obviously you want to look at, the catchers. Like Dingler's going to be there. We know Austin Romine's the starter. Derek Hill's an intriguing player for me, always has been. Victor Reyes is going to be the, super utility guy. Christian Stewart, and then the infield is going to be interesting because what I really think and what I really want to see is how Candelario, how he reacts to the last couple of drafts that the Tigers made. Obviously, when they got Jamer Candelario, he was, they penciled in to be the third baseman of the future. Maybe eventually he goes to first base, but this is a make or break year for him. So I mean, when I look at that, Harold Castro also is a good utility player. I'm not surprised. This is pretty much the way that I thought it was going to be. I'm glad that some of the young guys, some of the young draft picks that they drafted, I'm a big Riley Green fan, as you said. I mean, hopefully he's just too good. Like Ron Gardenhire said us last week. Hey, look, I probably brought him over too many times to Marchant Stadium to play with us, but he led the team in hitting. Hopefully, I keep saying it over and over, and I'm not saying it can't be the Torque man because it can be Torkelson. But if they catch a break on a player, maybe Riley Green's that player. I mean, I'm a big Riley Green fan. I know he's young and all that kind of stuff, but hey, covering the National Hockey League for as long as I have, I'm used to seeing 18 and 19-year-olds kids come in. I mean, they're very special players and playing and making an impact. Who's to say that maybe, and I'm not a baseball aficionado. I love baseball. I'm a huge Tigers fan. Maybe Riley Green's a guy that they can catch a break on. I'm really eager to see him, but I'm eager to just see the Tigers on the field. That pure white uniform that they have with that old English D, on the chest. I mean, it's just, it's going to be great. That's just, that's what you live for if you're a sports fan. It doesn't get any better when your home team, the team that you root for, takes their field of play for like the first time, all the emotions of, being a fan your whole life. You think about relatives that you went to games with. You think about certain moments in the team's history that you witnessed or that you've heard about. It's going to be very, very emotional because, for me, when I see the Tigers out there, the one thing that I'm going to miss, and I'm not trying to be, Mr. Downer here, even though the NHL has really, really affected my mood, is that, number 6 is not going to be there. Al Kaline's not going to be there. I mean, I'm used to seeing Al out there. I have been my whole life since I was a little boy, as a player. And then, in the broadcast booth, I'd always go in and say hello to him. And, when I was up in the press box, and, so that's rather sad. And, and I wonder, and I don't know this, but I would imagine that if the season does get on, I would imagine maybe the Tigers are going to wear a 6 patch or somehow pay tribute to Al, or maybe they wait a year when we're back to, complete normal. And they can wear it for 162 games instead of just 60. But, so that's a little sad not having Al there. But overall, having the Tigers on the field, I'm sure Al wouldn't want it any other way. He wanted baseball just as much as all of us. So I'm looking forward to it.
We are all looking forward to it. Baseball hopefully returning next week. The Tigers are set to take the field for spring training. All right, let's move on to the third topic of the big three. This one, we're going back to the NHL. I don't want to say it's bad news because it was somewhat expected that training camp, which is normally held in Traverse City, would be moved to Little Caesars Arena for the next season, and as well as the cancellation of the Prospects Tournament, which also takes place in Traverse City in September. I think that's the bigger part of this news. We all kind of expected training camp would be moved to Little Caesars Arena, but the cancellation of the Prospects Tournament, that's huge for the Prospects. It's great experience, and hey, it's a lot of fun for us too. So I'm a bit bummed that there won't be a Prospects Tournament the next season.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at this, you can say, well, okay, well, I guess it's to be expected. And, they're going to have training camp. It's just going to be at Little Caesars Arena. And these prospects, for the most part, a lot of them will be part of the training camp. But the prospects tournament, the development camp, where all they, you're with your peers, guys your same age, Detroit's high-end prospects for the most part, and some free agents that they end up signing, either to Grand Rapids or, to a contract, signing maybe even to Toledo. It's an opportunity for these guys to get their, get their skates wet, so to speak, and play as a team and come together as a team. I mean, last year, that was Mo Sider's coming out party, was that prospects tournament in Traverse City. I mean, I think he played almost 30 minutes a game. I'm so worked up right now, Daniela, that I'm actually sweating because I'm so angry. When I get angry, I get heated up. So, I apologize to our audience out here. I'll have to get a towel or something.
They love it.
Off.
You don't have to apologize.
You know what? I still have some red underwear here I can probably wipe my face off with. Yeah, that really worked out well.
You can turn them into rags now.
But anyway,
that didn't work.
That is the thing, because no one knows what's going to happen in the NHL, and I know some of the European leagues, they may get going. So this really hurts the development of some Red Wing prospects, some high-end prospects, because they may not have any place to play. I am still, if Steve and Ken Holland, who are part of that AHL committee to try to get them back to play and get them back on the ice, I don't know how viable that's really going to be. So I'm still under the impression, although we're talking about the NHL, so God only knows, that they will have to expand their rosters, meaning that if I were the Red Wings, I would much rather have my prospects. I don't want Mo Seider playing in Germany. I'm sorry, I don't. But if that's the only place he can play, or Filip Zadina in the Czech Republic or whatever, okay, then they go back there. I would much rather have them on a taxi squad with an expanded roster with the Red Wings practicing and playing every day with the Red Wings, and then maybe if it's an expanded roster and if they're doing well, throw them into a game and see what you have with some of these guys. I mean, that's what I would rather do. Now, I don't know if that would hinder the development. I guess I should talk to Sean Horkoff, or maybe we can get him on the show and ask him, about that. Is it better for them to have an expanded roster if there's no place for them to play in North America, or is it better for them to go to Europe or be with the Red Wings? But this is pretty big news. If you're a rebuilding team like the Red Wings and you have no place for your prospects to play, this tournament, and I feel bad for Traverse City. Not only do I love going up there, it's the best time of year to be up in Traverse City. It's a beautiful area. But it's really a boost to their economy. And obviously, with everything that's gone on, if the Red Wings would have been able to somehow work it out, that would have been, to probably some businesses up there that are hurting right now, that would have been a real good shot for them too. So, not a surprise, as you said, Daniela, but still a little disappointing, especially in the development process, because that prospects tournament was great. I mean, it was absolutely great. Who's who in hockey? 8 teams are there. You see the high end guys from each team going up against each other. And again, last year, that's where Mo Sider, when Jim Nill of the Dallas Stars, who obviously I know very well, the general manager comes up to me and says, "Wow, that Sider looks really, really good." Because usually, they play it close to the vest, but that's when it looks like the Red Wings may have a real good player here, and obviously, I think they do.
And Art, he was picked at 6, so what can we get at 4? There's the positive,
well,
right?
First of all, let me say this, okay? This number 4
Quick,
thing
Art,
that we're somehow gonna get the next Steve Yzerman. Like I said on Friday, I'd rather have Steve come out of retirement at 55 and play than maybe the number 4 pick that they're going to get. Nothing against the number 4 pick, nothing. But, a player like Steve Yzerman is generational and once in a lifetime, very, very much so. I mean, he's second to Gordie Howe as far as being the greatest Red Wing of all time. And they're neck and neck. And if Steve didn't get hurt during his career, have so many injuries, which he always came back from, high tolerance for pain. I tip my cap to Yzerman. That guy played with a lot of stuff. He probably would be the Red Wings all-time leading scorer. He would have passed Gordie's, 1809 as far as career Red Wing points. Steve's second, obviously, but I think he could have probably surpassed Gordie. And then maybe we would have had the conversation who was the better Red Wing. But I think in the end, you got to give it to number 9. But number 19 is right there. But they're not going to get number 19. They're not going to get Steve Yzerman with the 4 pick.
Take a breather.
They're just not, okay? Put that to rest. Put that to rest.
Chevy Clean Dealers are committed to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC-approved cleansers, so when you're ready, you can find new roads with confidence. You guys, it is time for the mailbag delivered to you by Little Caesars, and we're going to bring in Ken Cal as our guest for this one. Ken, I know that you're probably feeling somewhat similar to Art. You probably cooled down a little bit more over the weekend than he did. But I'm just going to give you the first question right out of the gate here because it does relate to the NHL Draft Lottery here. Liz from Southfield asks, do you think the results from the Draft Lottery will make the NHL reconsider the lottery system? She's still not over it. Liz isn't over it. Art's not over it. How you feeling, Ken?
Well, first and foremost, Art, I know you're sweating, so I've got this towel for you right here. So if you want to wipe yourself down, that's okay with me.
Thank you, Ken.
I certainly hope.
Thanks.
It might turn into red underwear for you, but there you go.
Thank you, Kenny.
You know what, Daniela and Art, I hope it changes. And, to me personally, I'm not a big fan of the lottery. And I think maybe there are all different types of situations you can look at. Maybe one of the situations is that the 2 worst teams in the league, there's a lottery between them. At least they'll get the 1 and 2 pick overall. And then everybody else can have the lottery for 3 through whatever. But, they certainly have to rethink it because to me, if you're involved in a postseason play, whether it be playoff games or in play-in games, you're competing for the Stanley Cup and the other teams aren't. So those 7 teams should be the only ones that could get the number 1 pick. That's my opinion. But I think the league looks at it. There's a lot of criticism from a lot of people in different areas about this lottery system. So I'm hoping that the NHL will take a good look at it and maybe they'll change things. But, I don't know. We'll just have to take a wait and see attitude for it.
We're still giving Art a breather on the lottery talk. So you're going to answer a baseball question right now, Art. And you kind of alluded to this in the big 3, but John from White Lake asked, the new training rosters are out. Any surprises on the list?
I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, 60 guys is kind of a lot. That's a pretty big roster to bring up here. They're all going to be together, split into 2 different shifts, an AM crew and a PM crew. Again, I'm more eager to see the young players and the young arms. I think that and they're and for the most part, most of them are here. I mean, some of the I think Torkelson's going to be here. Dingler is here, whom they drafted second overall. They have 2 spots open, so I don't know where the 60th spot, let's say spot 59, is going to go to Torkelson. So I'm more eager to see the young players, and for the most part, the players that we've heard about, from the young arms to some of their positional players, are going to be here. So I'm not really surprised by this roster. And obviously the guys like the Mabins and Goodrums, those guys, they're all starters. They're going to be here. So no, I really was not that surprised. There might be a couple of guys that were on the Tigers roster, 40-man roster, that weren't invited, but I think that they're going to be making some moves. So they took those guys off in order to put other guys on the 60-man roster, maybe like a Torkelson. Baseball rules actually are pretty good and they make sense, unlike the NHL. So I think what the Tigers did with this 60-man roster, or in this case 58, I think it's fine. I think it's good. I'm just eager to see them out on the field, and I'm really eager to see these young guys, led, of course, by the Torque Man and Riley Green.
Ken, how are you feeling about the return of baseball? Spring training very soon. Players are starting to report. Are you excited?
Of course I'm excited. I think the world needs sports, and that's been the glue that's kept the United States and people all over the world together. When you don't have sports, it's been kind of strange, really. And I just think that it's time for Major League Baseball to get things going. And even though it is a 60-game season, fans around the baseball world want to see baseball back, and I'm one of them. Hey, just going back real quick to your last question about changing the draft. What do you think of this? I was just thinking about this while Art was talking about the 60-man roster. What if at the end of the season, the bottom 2 teams, the night before the Stanley Cup playoffs begin, played against each other for the right for the number 1 pick? And if you had 4 teams, then they'd have to compete and play 2 games or something like that. But I think the bottom 2 teams should play, and it would draw interest, and whoever wins that game gets the number 1 pick.
Hey, Ken, you want excitement, like the argument that the playoff team getting the number 1 pick adds excitement. I think you just found a way to add even more. So I like it.
Yeah, and it's great. It'll be great for the fans watching.
Yeah.
It's a lot better than this, I'll tell you that.
Make Ken the commissioner. Just Commissioner Ken.
I don't want the job.
He'll be very accessible. He has enough ties to look good on camera. No. You're the new commissioner. I'm gonna call Hall of Fame general manager Ken Holland, and right now make it happen, because we know that Ken, in all seriousness, if this draft lottery is going to change, I guarantee you it's going to be a plan that Ken Holland comes up with. He's going to be the force behind it. Yeah, because he's changed a lot. Ken, you know this. There's a lot of things that hockey has done, which for the good things that they've done, that Ken Holland actually spearheaded. They're going to need Ken, and then Steve. Steve's in a bad position. He wants to get on board too. I'm sure he does, but he's got the last place team right now. So it almost, like he said on Friday, it's self-serving. But there's going to be a movement. There's going to be a movement in the NHL to change this draft system, and and I think some owners too are probably a little bit steamed. So that's eventually going to happen. And I think putting Cal as the new commissioner might be the start.
Hey, I'm right with you. Ken for commissioner. We're going to start that, get it trending on Twitter. But this next question, pretty related to what we're all talking about. I thought Art was settling down for a minute here, but Ken, this one's for you. What was the least surprising during the draft show on Friday, which you guys did a great job, by the way. You two and Carly were great. What was most surprising? The Wings picking 4th, Steve keeping his cool, or Art losing his mind? I think I know the answer to this one.
I don't know how to answer this question, but I was not surprised with Art not keeping his cool, just because of the fact that I know Art for a long time, and I know this was going to irritate him. So I wasn't surprised about that. I wasn't surprised how Steve Yzerman reacted, because I've known Steve a long time, and I know his position as a general manager. If he has any personal feelings about it, he's not going to share them with anybody. So, he took the high road, which is the right way if you're a general manager. And, I guess I guess I'm more surprised the fact that I thought the Red Wings would at least get the number 2 pick, if not the number 1 pick. And I was really surprised that they ended up number 4. But with that said, they're still going to get a good, solid player prospect. But overall, yeah, I guess I was disappointed and surprised that neither Ottawa or Detroit landed either the first or the second pick.
Ken, that was the biggest thing that surprised me too, that it wasn't either Ottawa or Detroit and they didn't get the first or second pick. But we're going to move on to baseball, you guys. This last question is for both of you. Art, you're going to answer first. Opening day is not far away now. So guys, what are you looking at for your opening day foods? This is Andrew from Royal Oak asking the question. Art, what are you eating on opening day?
Well, based on that caricature of me, what aren't I not eating on opening day? It looks like, I've got quite an appetite there. but there you go. I mean, I definitely Little Caesar's pizza. The way that I look at it, I'm kind of a traditionalist, and I know there's a lot of great food at Comerica Park, but as legendary Canadian songstress Shania Twain says, that don't impress me much. If I want to eat that kind of food, I'll go to probably a high-end restaurant. It's really high-end at Comerica. I'm not taking anything away from that. But for me, the food, of course, is just a ballpark frank with mustard. It's a hot dog and mustard. It's baseball, Chevrolet, apple pie, and a hot dog with mustard at a ball game. That is my opening day food. Nothing against all the great food, and I guess, again, based on my caricature, I'll be eating virtually everything on the menu at Comerica Park, but I'll begin with a hot dog with mustard. And you know what? I know Double D's been on, and he's talked about the grilled, going up to and getting the grilled dog. I've always liked the steamed dogs that you get from the vendor who comes to your seat. And the way people pass down food, that's probably not going to happen anymore with COVID-19. They're probably not going to be passing food back and forth. But aside from that, that's it. It's a hot dog with mustard.
I got to say, I'm all about the grilled dog. But what about you, Ken?
I can remember as a kid going to Tiger Stadium, and the vendor would come by with those steamed dogs, and you could smell them about 2 sections away. The aroma just filled the air. And the guy would come to you, and he would put that canister down, and you'd order a hot dog, and then he had a tongue depressor, a wood tongue depressor with a cup of mustard. He'd take that tongue depressor, dip it in that mustard, and slap it right on the dog. And, you got more mustard on you than on the hot dog because that's how he slathered it on. But yeah, no doubt in my mind, a hot dog, and they always seem to taste better at the ballpark. But I will add this, not only a hot dog, but an ice cold, big, large beer. That's what I'd like to go with the hot dog, because you need something to wash it down. And now that I'm drinking age, barely, I can drink a beer with it. So a hot dog and a beer and peanuts, maybe, if you want to add something else.
You know what, Ken? That's a full meal. And I'm sure it, as Lisa McDowell, the Red Wing team nutritionist, would say, you're eating the whole rainbow on that one. But Daniela, she watches her weight, so no hot dog, no food. She likes those big froofy. You drink those. What are they? I don't know if they're margaritas
like
or
daiquiris.
Daiquiris. Danielle's a big daiquiri. I guess the nickname should be daiquiri. Daiquiri Daniela. I know that's her go-to opening day food.
Well,
what do you like? Daniela?
I might watch my weight, but I eat the hot dogs. Okay, I eat the hot dogs, the hamburgers, the fries. I eat it all. I love ballpark food.
Yeah. No, it is the best. It is the best. But wait, so you eat everything. So Ken wanted to know.
What did you say?
Kenny wants to know, if you had to choose one, what would it be?
If I had to choose one, anything at the ballpark, I'm going with a hot dog too. It's a classic, but I also really like soft pretzels. I forgot that one. One of my favorite things with the cheese. So the other thing that I definitely like, though, is a hot and ready pepperoni cheeser from the Little Caesars, you guys. I want to thank Little Caesars for delivering us the mailbag. And you can get a large pepperoni cheeser topped with classic pepperoni pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. Try our no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. Big thank you to Ken Kale for joining us on the mailbag. You guys, we've still got a lot coming up on today's show. Andy Dirks is going to join us. We're going to talk to Dana Wakiji from the Detroit Red Wings. And we've got Corey Pronman later in the show to talk more about the NHL Draft Lottery and some of the top prospects. But right now, we're going to catch up with Carly.
That's right. Thanks, Daniela. It's time for Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. Today, I'm joined by Red Wings defenseman Alex Biega. How's it going, Alex?
Hey, great. Thanks, Carly. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. Okay, so let's start talking first about your family. You have 3 little boys. How was quarantine, spending extra quality time with them? It must have been so nice.
Yeah, there's a silver lining in everything to this, and for us, it's having that quality time at home and being able to spend time with my 3 young boys, and it's been fun. You know what? It's you definitely see, and we talk about how unfortunate it is for us not being able to go out and socialize or go out to eat at restaurants. And for them, I mean, I see it. My 5-year-old. I really applaud the kids and how they really stepped up and have really understood how important it is to social distance and just try to do what they can to improve the situation and make an impact. So we've been good. We've been just playing a lot of hockey in the house and just hanging out for the most part.
There always is a silver lining to everything. Okay, so let's hop into hockey. This past season was your first with the Red Wings. So let's take a look into what got you there. How did you get into hockey?
My mom, actually, I grew up in Montreal, Canada, and obviously hockey is very, very big there. And I started a little bit later. I started when I was around 7, I want to say. And
Okay.
my mom just kind of said, you know what, like, give it a shot. If you hate it, you can do something else and play soccer like you have been doing. So my brother Mike and I, who's my brother's 13 months younger than I am, we went out together and we ended up loving it. And I never looked back after that.
Well, good thing you didn't. But I have a question before we really dive into hockey. The name on your hockey sticks reads Bulldog. Where did that nickname come from?
There was a guy I played with probably like 6 or 7 years ago who nicknamed me Bulldog. He just saw me on the ice and saw me in the weight room and the way I kind of played and approached the game. He just said, you know what, the perfect name for you is Bulldog. And then that never really, I bet you even there's some people in the organization that probably don't even know my first name, but I'm okay with that. I'm used to it.
I love it. It really credits your tenacity, which has helped you along the way. You were drafted in the first round of the 2004 QMJHL entry draft, but you opted to play high school hockey. So why is that?
Education was really important for my family and I growing up. And one thing that we've always tried to do at a young age was put a priority on the academics. And my parents were, I guess, the stereotypical parents where they said, you know what, if you don't finish your homework, if you don't do well in school, you're not going to hockey practice. And that was always a priority. And I always was intrigued in playing college hockey. And I went to Salisbury Prep School, which was ultimately a feeder to get into the collegiate ranks. And I loved my experience. I loved my experience at Salisbury. Made some, some of my best friends in life that I still am close contact with, and it paved the way to college. And it was truly probably the best 6 years of my life.
Okay, so speaking of education, you then attended Harvard University. So you made the right decision by staying in school. You played on their ice hockey team with accomplishments being named all rookie your freshman year, MVP junior year, and then being named the team captain senior year. So it seems like you made the right decision playing in the NCAA division. Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my approach was always twofold. There was one, you try to go to the best school that you possibly can, and it was not only the academics, but just the people that you surrounded yourself with, and the people I had the pleasure of speaking to and meeting. I go to a class, and the person next to me had a very different and unique background, and I found it to be a pleasure just to meet a different dynamic group of people, and it was great. I mean, it's like college. College is supposed to be the best 4 years of your life, and it truly was. So And then in terms of the hockey end, I was a smaller defenseman growing up, and even back then it was like you had to be 6 feet or bigger to even have a chance to play in the NHL. So I kind of looked at that from my perspective to have more time in the weight room and more time for seasoning and preparing yourself to ultimately transition to the next level in professional ranks.
Well, it definitely worked out for you. You were drafted by the Sabres in 2006. What was that experience like?
It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. I remember I was that's when I didn't go to the draft physically, and I was actually out with friends. And my mom texted me. She's like, "You just got drafted by," or called me. She's like, "You got drafted in the 5th round of the Buffalo Sabres." And I was with a bunch of buddies in Montreal that I grew up with. So looking back, it was actually cool having celebrated with guys like that, just because they helped you along the way and they pushed you along the way. And it was a moment like anyone. They would tell you when they get drafted, you get drafted to the NHL. I mean, it's truly a privilege, and all that hard work that you put in when you were a kid. You have that split second or days or weeks or months to really reflect on that and recognize all that hard work paid off. And then obviously the harder work came into play after that, but still it was definitely a great milestone.
I love that. That's a great draft story. All right, so you made your NHL debut with the Canucks then in 2015, and you scored your first NHL goal in that game. I mean, what a great first impression. What was that moment like?
It was awesome. Not many people actually know the story. I'm not sure if it's well documented or not, but I was called up because I think Chris Tanev couldn't go apparently, and my flight was delayed. I was flying out of Toronto to Vancouver, and it was delayed. So long story short, I got in just before a pregame skate, so I didn't sleep. And then I found out, okay, like Tanev's good to go. You're going to be a healthy scratch tonight. So I stayed on the ice, did extra with the coach, bag skated. And then finally went down for a nap, and my phone was ringing like 4 times around, like, I don't know, 3:30 or 3:15. And it was one of the coaches, and they said, "Hey, come to the rink. You're playing tonight."
Oh, wow.
So it's funny. And so I literally only had time to call my parents and then my agent. And looking back, it was actually probably the best way to get a first game, just regardless of being how tired I was. And but I've waited. I played 5 years in the minors, and you wait your whole life, and you have that belief that when you do get the opportunity and when you do get the chance, your preparation and everything that you've done up to that moment, you're ready to capitalize. And it was truly one of those moments you hear from athletes, just being in the zone and feeling like everything just is happening in your favor. That truly happened to me, and I ended up scoring the game-winning goal and was first star of the game. And just like the draft, I had that night, I was kind of just in bed. I was like, I couldn't even sleep after that, regardless how exhausted I was. I was just like, wow, this is insane. And you call it God or the hockey gods or whatever, everything aligned for me that night. And it was truly, probably looking back, probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life.
That's amazing. And speaking of things aligning, you made your transition to the Red Wings. In your first game with them, you played the Canucks.
Yeah, no, it was cool. It was, you know what, I'll be brutally honest. When I first got traded there, I thought the intention was I was going to play right away when I got in, and I didn't play that game, didn't play the game after, and so I was talking to the coaching staff and I guess getting ready, and then we flew into Vancouver. And after the first practice, they're like, "Well, you ready to go?" I'm like, "Yeah." So it was definitely really weird playing against those guys. I mean, some of those guys are, some of my closest friends and guys I've been around for the past 5 years, and it was definitely awkward and weird, but it was actually maybe easier too, just because I knew everyone's tendencies and how they played, and so once I got past that part, it was pretty fun.
Well, Alex, thanks so much for joining me on Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. That was incredible. It was nice to get to talk to you. I hope you and your family stay well, and I can't wait to see you back out on the ice.
Yeah, I can't wait either. All right, thanks, Carly. Have a great summer.
You as well.
Thank you, Carly and Alex. Great to hear from Alex. Always nice to catch up with him. And hey, some of those stories that I didn't know about his early career. So great job, Carly. That was a great interview. We're going to keep you around for this one because it is time for Bet You Didn't Know, presented by Motor City Casino Hotel. And Carly, I have bad news for the both of us. Art is the ringleader today, so he has something up his sleeve. Not sure what, because how he's feeling right now.
You bet I do.
Yeah, completely.
And, and I'm taking my disgust out on you two today.
Lovely.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm definitely not. Okay, this is what Bet You Didn't Know is today. Today, okay. June 30th, is a big day in Detroit Tigers home run history. Home run history. Now, okay, so I'm going to give you 3 scenarios. All of them happen. 2 of them happen today on June 30th, not like June 30th, 2020, but sometime on June 20th or June 29th in the past, okay? All right, so here we go. These are your 3 choices. 2 happen on June 30th. The Tigers come back from 3 runs on a walk-off grand slam. Kirk Gibby, a fellow Michigan Stater like you two, hits it out of Tiger Stadium, and Miguel Cabrera hits a home run into a fish tank. Now, 2 of those happened on June 30th. 1 of them did not, but all 3 of them did occur in Tigers history. So which one is false? Which one didn't happen on June 30th?
You have to pick who's going first. Do I have to every time?
Oh, yeah. I'm always going to pick you, Daniela.
What? I feel like that's it could be like fair or unfair. I don't really know if it's an advantage or disadvantage to go first. But I don't know the answer. I got to look at these again.
Hold on a second. All right, because
I'm waiting.
Carly, if Carly wants to go first and you're okay with it, Daniela, I'll switch it up.
It's okay. I'm good. I'll take the pass. Daniela can go first.
You have to make the final decision. Switch back and forth. What's the final decision?
Well, my final decision is always going first with you because I want Carly to have more time to think about it.
This is just rude, Art. I'm so gonna remember this. Okay. I don't know. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. I don't know. This is a tough one. You really narrowed it down to exactly which date it happened in history. I actually remember Miguel Cabrera's fish tank one. Oh gosh, so I'm just gonna go with one of the other 2. Let's go with the Tigers hitting a walk-off grand slam. We'll go with the first one.
So you don't think that happened on June 30th, right?
Now you're making me second guess it. I didn't 1 second ago, and now I don't know.
No. All right, no. You've got to hold off. Okay, that's the one that you think is false. They all happened, but that one didn't happen on June 30th. Okay. All right there, Carly. What are you going to say?
I want to say the same thing. Wait, can I see him again? I want to say the same thing as Daniela, but I don't know because it's hard to tell. So I don't even know. Excuse me. Let's say I want to say something different than Daniela, but I was leaning on that one. Okay, I'm going to say Gibby didn't hit it out of Tiger Stadium on June 30th. And I know I'm going to regret it because I bet you Daniela's answer is right.
No. Carly, you're absolutely correct. Kirk Gibson did hit it out of Tiger Stadium, but he didn't do it on June 30th. Gibby hit it out of Tiger Stadium. And as a matter of fact, he hit it out of Tiger Stadium into the lumberyard. The home run traveled. This was on June 14th, which is Flag Day of 1983. He hit it 523 feet. I mean, this thing is a bomb. legendary classic Gibby swing. See ya, Rick Riz, if you remember him. Goodbye, baseball. That is out of the park, 523 feet. The other 2 feats did happen. As a matter of fact, the Tigers did come back from 3 runs down on a walk-off grand slam. It was Rajay Davis, and it happened to be on the June 30th, 2014. The Tigers beat Oakland. This was also the 30th anniversary of them celebrating the Tigers 84 team. So it was sold out. Okay. All the 84 Tigers were there. And the only other player to ever hit a grand slam walk-off in Tigers history was 1984 MVP Alan Trammell. So a little history there. And then Miggy hit it into the fish tank on June 30th, 2013. Okay. Hit it into, I think it's like a shark tank or something in Tampa. He hit it in there. You're gonna watch it. Watch it, like boom. There you go. So Miggy hit it out. That is also on June 30th. Classic swing, great power. He has great power to the opposite field. Can hit home runs anywhere, especially back then. So there you have it. 2 truths and a lie. Again, Carly, you are.
I don't know.
That's why you're the champ. And Daniela, better luck next time. Better luck next time.
I have to tell everyone that we didn't even know what this was about. I swear we are not cheating. I am not cheating. I didn't even know what today's subject was about. So there you have it. Like I said, I'm just really good at guessing for some reason.
That was a hard one too. That was tough. We knew they all happened, but we had to remember what day in history. That was a tough one. You did it, Art. You finally did something that was actually tough.
Right. Well, I trust me. I had some help from our support staff, big time on this. But there's no question. What was great though, Carly? What I really like about it is that you win on your second choice. You were going to say what Daniela said, but you didn't want to do it, so you go with Gibby and you end up winning. That is the mark of a champion.
Very interesting point. I know. I really was. When you were reading them, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know. If I don't know, I just go with me.
Carly, may I ask you something? It's a kind of a personal question. That artwork that is behind you, are those grass clippings that you kind of stuck together?
It's moss. It's live moss that was glued onto wooden pallets. My mom's an interior decorator, so she knows the decor game. She always helps me decorate.
It kind of looks like something else that I don't want to get into. So looks like you want to have a good time. Take some.
We'll leave it for when Darren is around.
I'm just saying. I mean, very interesting.
All right. On that note, big thank you to Motor City Casino Hotel for presenting Bet You Didn't Know this week and every week right here on the Word on Woodward. Carly, I'm not sure how you're going to follow that one up, but I know that you've been all over social media. So what do you got for us today?
That is right. Thanks, Danielle. I have been monitoring the social channels. And first up is this tweet from the Red Wings. So on this day in 1993, which is the year I was born, by the way, so 27 years ago, Chris Draper was traded from the original Winnipeg Jets to the Detroit Red Wings for $1. Crazy to think after all the success he's had after that in the league and with the Red Wings. But I have to say this, it's so cheesy, but he really gave the team a bang for their buck. I know it was really bad, but whatever. Then on the Tigers side, they're having I do like that, Art. On the Tigers side, they're having a happy hour with Matt Shepard as the host. Joining him is a slew of awesome former Tigers: Nate Robertson, Todd Jones, and Craig Monroe. So that's tomorrow night at 6 p.m. So check out the Tigers social media platforms to see how you can get involved. And that's all I have for right now, but make sure you guys send in your questions so we can answer them later on the show.
Thank you, Carly. As she said, you guys make sure you're asking your questions on whatever channel that you are watching right now, and we'll try to get to them later in the show. We're going to have Andy Dirks joining the show later, former Tiger, and Corey Pronman to break down the NHL Draft Lottery and talk about all of the prospects that the Red Wings could take with that 4th pick. But right now, we're going to talk some hockey. It's time for Downtown Hockey Town, presented by Labatt Blue Light, and today's guest is Dana Wakiji, senior content producer for the Detroit Red Wings. Dana, always great to see you. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
It's always fun to be with you two.
Yes, it's great to have you, like I said, and we've got a lot to talk about today. The lottery is in the books. The Red Wings are picking 4th. Not really a surprise there for most of us, but what was your initial reaction to the entire lottery process?
Well, if I didn't get a vote in how the whole format was supposed to go, so I wasn't totally surprised when it went down like it did, because as we've seen the past few years, the Wings have gone down every single year they've been in the lottery, which is terrible, but it wasn't unexpected, especially when you looked at the odds and you saw they had a 50.6% chance of getting the 4th pick, which is way better than 18 point whatever percent they had of getting the 1st pick.
Dana, I think what makes it so anticlimactic, and I was like, I was really calm, and when it came down, I figured, well, what the heck, the Red Wings are 4th again. They've gone down 3 spots this time. Usually it's 2, but this time it was 3. And so the 4th pick, but isn't there something just inherently wrong if the 9th best team in the league, if this playoff thing, the way it comes out, the 9th best team in the league can actually have the number 1 pick? I am sure that the NHL, in their infinite wisdom, did not want that to happen.
No, but the way they set it up, they had to know that that was a good chance that it could happen that way. So, they have to live with the consequences, as do we, unfortunately. But, no, I don't want to see somebody from that group getting the number 1 pick. But, obviously the Wings, unfortunately, deserved it and aren't going to get it.
Let's focus on the Red Wings for a minute here. They are picking 4th. There are a lot of good players in this draft, so we know the Red Wings are still going to get a good prospect, regardless of how disappointed we are as a fan base. What direction do you see the Red Wings going in with this 4th pick?
Well, as it is every year, a lot depends on the 3 teams that pick before them. The year that they got Zadina a couple of years ago, he was projected to be the 3rd best player in the draft. Although all along, I will credit you, Art, you said that they were going to get Zadina, so you were right. So if one of the teams ahead of them, mystery team, the Kings or the Senators, sort of goes off the board of those top 3 projected players, which is Lafreniere, I don't think anybody's assuming that the first team is not going to pick Lafreniere, but Byfield and Stutzla, if one of those 2 teams doesn't take one of those 2 players, then the Wings would have a chance. Otherwise, then maybe they do go Drysdale, they do go Alexander Holtz or Lucas Raymond or Cole Perfetti, one of those type of guys. It just it depends on what those 3 teams do.
Dana, when you look at it, I mean, I get in this discussion with Ken Daniels all the time, is that if they take Jamie Drysdale, right-handed shooting defenseman, and then with Mo Seider, and then Tamisto, I believe, is a right-handed shooting defenseman, Gus Lindstrom, who I almost called Nick Lindstrom's, pardon me, that'd be great. But Gus Lindstrom's a right-handed shot, but let's be honest here. You cannot have enough right-handed shots, right? I mean, I don't think Steve is going to look at it and think, oh, well, he's a right-handed shot, I'm not going to take him. I mean, at that point, if he believes in it, he's going to take Jamie Drysdale at number 4.
Steve is going to go with whatever he and, his top lieutenants, which is Chris Draper, Pat Verbeek, those guys think. And if they've seen enough of Drysdale that they think that he's going to be a true impact defenseman, then they will absolutely take him. It won't matter that he's a right-hand shot defenseman or whatever. And, I was also encouraged by your conversation with Craig Button where he said, this guy is a legit number 1 defenseman type who could play in the league. And if you look back a few years ago at Colorado, everybody was like, oh, they had the Senators pick and they fell to 4th. And they ended up with Cale Makar, who's obviously a Calder Trophy candidate. Maybe something like that could happen for the Wings. We don't know yet.
Dana, Steve Yzerman has even said that there is not a place on this team, a position on this team that doesn't need improvement. But when you look at the Red Wings prospect pool, Grand Rapids, overseas, wherever the prospects may be, what do you think the strong suit is for the Red Wings?
Well, right now, I think they've got a lot of good forwards. I don't think they have enough great centers, perhaps, in the system. They seem to have a lot of good defensemen. Some of them, like Tumisto, who you mentioned earlier, Art, is a little young. He's going to be going to college in the United States, hopefully, this season. And, so I think that probably overall forwards are the strongest just because you have so many more of them. But, they could use more forwards in terms of centers and anybody who can score, really.
Well, when you look at it, I mean, Rasmussen should be on the team this coming year. I think Giovanni Smith is on the team. Joe Valeno, as much as I'd like to see him on the team, he might be a year away. So I think you're right. Their forward core is starting to come around. However, that's what makes this fourth pick so interesting is that a guy like Cole Perfetti, Marco Rossi, Lucas Raymond, Holtz. I mean, they need scoring as well. So I mean, this is not. I mean, we could sit here and, like the NHL draft and throw like 50 ping pong balls in the air, and all of them could be the Red Wings' fourth round pick. I mean, it's really pretty wide open at number 4.
It is pretty wide open. And you also have to consider the fact that with the NHL draft, it's not like the NFL where a lot of those players that you just saw drafted in April are going to play this season, COVID-19 permitting. But with the NHL, it's very rare that you have that many players playing the year they're drafted. So Lafreniere, we all assume that if there's a season, he will play in the NHL. But after that, it doesn't seem to be quite so sure. Even somebody as talented as Quentin Byfield, who's actually young for this draft class, is not considered quite NHL ready yet. So, even if they do pick somebody who's going to be great, it's going to be a few years.
Dana, the Red Wings have a lot of other picks in this draft. Yes, we're focusing on that first round, 4th overall pick, but they have 10 total draft picks this year, 3 of them being in that second round. So the second round is huge for the Red Wings. What do you see them addressing with some of their later picks?
Well, again, they're going to try to go for whoever they perceive to be the best players available at those slots. Right now we're looking at on our website, we're looking at some of those picks, those players who are projected to go in the second and third rounds, because as you said, we do have multiple picks there. So these are going to be important players. I mean, all you have to do is look back at Steve's time in Tampa. He got Braden Point in the third round. He got Nikita Kucherov in the second round. So it would be highly desirable for him to get a guy like that in this upcoming draft. And let's just hope that there is that guy available when they're picking, which they have several chances to do.
Dana, in unrestricted free agency, Steve, I think pretty much would like to give guys probably unrestricted free agents 1-year deals. He probably knows he has to go 2 in order to get them, much like he did last season. But I would say that they probably want to get some defensemen maybe in unrestricted free agency, but they definitely have to get a goalie. Are you kind of leaning that way too?
Yeah, I totally agree. A goalie for sure, 100% goalie. And then, yes, a veteran defenseman, especially with the loss of, Ericsson's contract expired, Trevor Daley's contract expired, and then they traded Mike Green to Edmondson. So a nice veteran defenseman would help that group a bit.
My question was related to goalies still. So we're talking about picking one up in free agency, which is probably going to happen. Everyone's assuming that's going to happen. But when you look again at the current prospects that are in the system, which goalie prospect do you think is closest to being able to make the Red Wings?
Well, it's still Philip Larson, even though he struggled last year in his first year professional. I mean, it generally takes goaltenders more time. That's the way it's always been. So, I would think he's still the closest, even if he does have a ways to go. And then after him, perhaps someone like Keith Petruzzelli, who had a really rough start to his college career at Quinnipiac in terms of adjusting to the maturity that was required to sort of be on your own and make those decisions. But since then, he's really come a long way. So if he can make that kind of progress and continue to make that kind of progress, maybe he won't be so far away, and maybe he's a possibility in 2, 3, 4 years.
Well, Dana, let's go back to the prospects for a minute here. Let's talk about the Swedish guys that may have the chance to play, like a Lucas Raymond or an Alexander Holtz. What advantage would they have heading into the draft if they do get to play?
If they were to start their seasons in Europe on time, which is, going to be around the beginning of September, then they would have a big advantage in terms of they'd be freshest. They'd have the freshest video, and I would assume that the Red Wings would be able to go over there and see them play. So then they could either make the case that, oh yeah, these kids are better than we thought, or maybe not as good as they thought. So it can go both ways. But if they start out hot, like some players do, then it could definitely make their draft case go higher.
Dana, thank you so much for joining us today. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but we appreciate you spending your time with us and all of your insight on the draft lottery and all the prospects that the Red Wings have to choose from at that 4th pick. A big thank you to Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockeytown. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. Another big thank you to Dana, especially today on her birthday, Art. Today's Dana's birthday. So a huge happy birthday to Dana Wakiji. You're the best, Dana.
Yes, definitely happy birthday to Dana. She wanted to really downplay it in typical Dana fashion, but she's my colleague. I work with her every day. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be doing this show today. So I'm very grateful to Dana. She's been a longtime friend. I've known her a long, long time. And happy birthday to Dana. It doesn't get much better than Dana Wakiji, that's for sure.
It doesn't, Art. And hopefully one day soon we can celebrate with her in person. But now, Tigers fans, this one is for you. Art and I caught up with former Tiger Andy Dirks earlier this week. It's time for Brush Street Beat, presented by our friends at McLaren Healthcare. And today's guest is Andy Dirks, former Tiger. First of all, Andy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here.
It is. It's great to have you. And you played at Wichita State. So we're going to start talking about your baseball career here. And you bounced around a little bit in the minors, and you had a fairly short but really successful career here in Detroit. So why don't you talk about your road to get to the Tigers and what your time was like with this organization?
Yeah, so just to keep it brief, because it's a long journey, I talk to a lot of kids about, the journey to the big leagues. Everybody wants to know, what's it like? It's one day at a time. Just keep doing the same things over and over and getting better. For me, junior college, then Wichita State, got drafted as a senior, and then it was low A. Then I had a stint in rookie ball in the GCL, the lowest level we have in America. GCL, low A, double A, triple A, big leagues. They moved me along quickly because I was older. I was 22 when I got drafted, and it's kind of do good or you're gone. There's somebody behind you. And then I remember when I got called up, it was when Maglio broke his ankle. I was in AAA and I was doing well, and Maglio slid into home and broke his ankle. And Phil Nevin was my manager at the time, and he called my hotel room. I think we're in Indianapolis with the Mud Hens, and he said, "You want to go to lunch?" I'm like, that is weird. A manager asking you to lunch, that's just not normal. I said, sure, because I know Nevin. He played in the big leagues. He's got some cash. He'll pick up the tab for a nice lunch. And it was pretty surreal. And I really only played about 3 years, right? Then I had some back surgeries, some serious back injuries that shortened my career. But looking back at the whole thing, it's like, what an opportunity it was, because I'm from a tiny town in Kansas, like middle of nowhere in Kansas. Grew up on a dirt road. My high school had about 300 people in it, 300 and some people. And I grew up 8 miles outside of a town of probably like 1,200 people. So it was a farming community, and then to play in Detroit, and then Detroit liked me, which I thought was cool. The kid from the middle of nowhere in Kansas, in a big metropolitan area, they kind of rallied around me because blue collar, played hard. They liked that, right? Which I always thought was cool, and I appreciated from the city.
Andy, you might be from Kansas, but I understand that you have made a home for yourself right here in Detroit. What have you been up to since your baseball career ended?
Yeah, so I married a Bloomfield, so a Michigan girl. We have 4 kids. We just had our 4th kid. We live in Clarkston now, and I sell real estate all over Detroit Metro. I got in real estate pretty much as soon as I had my second back surgery and realized, playing's done. I've really enjoyed it, and it was a new challenge for me, learning real estate, learning sales, learning what it takes to be successful. And I'm a challenge motivated guy, whether, baseball, now real estate, or raising kids, or marriage. There's so many challenges in life that we're all facing. And I like taking the challenge and doing as good as I can with the opportunities that I have. I'm like everybody else. I don't want to go to work, and there was days I didn't want to ball field. As crazy as that sounds to people when I tell them that, it's like when we normally play 162, there's days you show up and you're like, the last thing I want to do is put on cleats, pants, and go out there and have to hit 97-mile-an-hour fastball, But those are the things that once you get on the field, they kind of melt. And it's the same way in a lot of things in my life. Once I get into the activity, it's always before I go, it's like, kind of dragging some days. And then, but once I'm in it, it's like, this is it. Yeah, now it's exciting again. So that's always the challenge for me, is to make sure I know once I get there, it's game on. And that's where I enjoy things.
Andy, though, you might have a future in broadcasting. I know that you have done some Tiger games. I know when Jim Price was ailing a little bit. Do you see yourself someday maybe being one of the voices of the Tigers?
I really enjoy it, and I think it would be like doing the radio broadcast. The color guy on radio, that's got to be one of the best jobs in the world. The problem is travel, and I got these young kids, right? So that would be something that would be a big decision for my family as well as me. Selfishly, yeah, let's go. Let's go do it. Let's go around, do the color games. But when I got young kids, I want to be as present as possible for as many days as possible, because I'm going to blink and they're going to be out of my house making their own decisions, right? So I want to make sure I'm taking plenty of time with them. That would be the thing that would keep me from doing it, though.
You said you have 4 kids?
Yeah. Yep. Little. 4, 3, 1.5, and a newborn.
Oh, so very little.
Gosh.
I was going to ask you if
Very little.
gotten into baseball yet, but you've got your hands full with a lot more than baseball right now.
That's right. And for my kids, like when it comes to sports, obviously they're going to do activities. They're going to be, but me and my wife, that is something we'll walk through like every other parent does. What they're into and what they excel in is probably usually where the kids go. I was always into sports, but I was a good athlete. I was a pretty good athlete. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the competition. I like the dirt of baseball. I like the grass of baseball. I like throwing, hitting, but not every kid's rigged that way. But we want to make sure that with our kids, we give them opportunities in what they enjoy. My son, if you go on my Instagram, I posted a video of him hitting off the tee. It's good. It's good. It's hard to explain, but I laugh at it constantly now. It's one of those videos if I'm like, I'm not having the greatest day, and laugh. So it's good. You should check it out.
I definitely
Well, we certainly will. Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask you a little bit about baseball, obviously. I know you played all 3 outfield positions when you were with the Tigers. You're really a versatile player, but I want to jump ahead. In 3 weeks from now, we're going to see baseball. And the Tigers have pitching is the strength of this team. Do you think when baseball begins on the 24th of July that pitchers will be ahead of hitters or hitters will be ahead of pitchers?
I think pitchers will be ahead of hitters. This is a long layoff for a hitter. Even coming into spring training, you've seen guys that take sometimes 60 games just to get going, hitting wise. A lot of times it takes good hitters, even good ones, to kind of settle in throughout a season. They might be hitting a $190 going into the 35th game, and then they're going to catch fire at some point. For the shortened season, it's going to be tough on the hitters and for the pitchers. I think just coming in back into their mechanics. That's the only thing I worry about with pitchers is staying healthy and getting back into their normal routine of throwing. It's going to be a challenge for everybody. I think that this season is going to be completely up in the air. And for a team like the Tigers, I would be so excited to know that we're only doing 60. Nobody's more prepared than anybody else. If it's a rookie or a veteran, nobody's been through this before. Nobody's been through this situation of layover, and it's like for a team like the Tigers, I would be so excited to know all we have to do is be hot for 60 games, boys. All we have to do is be hot. Just start the season hot for just 2 months of baseball, and we can be in a playoff, right? It's amazing. It's a huge opportunity for a team like us right now.
When you look at baseball coming back, 60-game schedule, with all of that combined, and looking back at your career, do you think that you just said it's an advantage maybe for the Tigers because of their pitching, but they're a really pretty young baseball team, and they do have some veterans in there that these guys are so inexperienced that they're just going to go in there and play a game that they love and have fun and let the chips fall where they may, which might be the exact mindset to have during a 60-game schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Just get after it. There's no holding back with a 60-game schedule. Get ready in spring training. There's no, the last 2 games haven't been going well, but we'll kind of get out of the funk. Now, if you lose 5 games in a row in a 60-game season, it's a big deal. If you lose 5 games in a row in a 162-game season, the media might say, whoa, but as players, it's like, we might go on a 10-game win streak at some point, so it balances out. Here, it's like, if you go on a 10-game win streak, that's a sixth of your season already. That's huge, So I think the way that managers are going to manage is going to be different because the wins are more important. The win for that day is more important than I need to save my bullpen for the next week and a half, the 2-week stretch. It's going to be it's going to be a baseball, and I think we're going to see a sloppier game in the beginning, which is kind of normal anyway going into a season. But a few more errors that players normally probably wouldn't make, and I think that we'll probably see some guys play really well, some no-name guys that all of a sudden kind of have some superstardom. Because in the season, you got to remember, at the All-Star, sometimes there's guys that are hitting 395, 400 almost in 60 games. And if that's considered a whole season going into the next season, there's going to be players you never heard of that we're going to be expecting the moon from that just tank, when you get back into a regular season again. So be on guard for that as fans and as media and as the people watching. Keep a level head about it and enjoy it, right? Because that's what we need to do right now is enjoy these games that these guys are going to play. You see what happens when we don't have sports? Chaos, right? So let's get sports back. Let's bring some happiness and some enjoyment back into the communities. But those are my thoughts on it.
Like pretty much everything that's going on right now, I think this baseball season is going to be unpredictable, which is really cool. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how everything plays out. But unfortunately, Andy, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining us. It was great to catch up with you. And a big thank you to McLaren Health System for presenting Brush Street Beat this week and every week right here on the Word on Woodward. Another thank you to Andy Dirks for joining us, and he has me amped up for the shortened baseball season. So I'm really excited. 60 games is a really exciting thing for the Tigers. Another exciting thing for the Tigers going on tomorrow is their virtual happy hour, you guys. This is at 6 p.m. hosted by Fox Sports Detroit's Matt Shepard. And I hear we might be getting an appearance from some of our 2006 Tigers. It's going to be really fun. So you guys definitely want to tune into that. Again, that's tomorrow at 6 p.m. You can check in with the Tigers social media to get more details on that as we get closer. But again, tomorrow at 6 p.m. And right now, I'm going to hand it over to Art for the headliner.
Thank you, Daniela. It is time for the headliner brought to you by Miller Lite. And we welcome in Corey Prombin, the NHL prospects writer for The Athletic. Corey, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your time. I know you're really, really busy.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me.
I guess first and foremost, I just want to get your thoughts on what transpired in the draft lottery on Friday night. Obviously, it's not playing real well here in Detroit, but your overall thoughts on it.
Well, it'll create some intrigue going into the play-in round right now. I think you're going to kind of see one of the great, dramas related to the draft lottery in any sport now that you have, a really potential good player at the number 1 pick in Alexis Lafreniere, who will you'll have a 12.5% chance at getting him if you're the one of the 8 teams that lose the play-in round. So in that sense, it creates a ton of intrigue. And I think in the other sense, it creates some discussion. Following the 2015 2015 season where it was kind of that race to the bottom for Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel. They changed the lottery system to spread out the odds a little bit more. And this, when you give teams that are on the lower end of the standings, odds to win, let me rephrase it. When you give the teams that have, better records, some decent odds to win the first overall pick, this could have been the result, and it was. And now you have teams like Ottawa, like Los Angeles, like Detroit, who are not going to get the player they really need to turn their organization around. So I'll be really interested to see how this changes the discussion on what's the right way to hold the draft lottery going forward.
Yeah, I would assume that there's going to be discussion, especially if the ninth best team in the league record, if they get eliminated in that play-in round, ends up getting the number one pick overall. It seems kind of odd, but I don't want to get in on it. We want to talk about prospects. Certainly
Sure.
The Red Wings drafting at number 4. If everything plays out and the top 3 high-end forwards go, of course, Lafreniere, as you said, Byfield, and Stützle, then the Red Wings have that's when it really starts to get interesting if it plays out that way. So, first of all, this is a draft-heavy for forwards. That I think we all know that. But I want to ask you, Corey, I ask you to speak into your crystal ball here, but do you think
Sure.
there's any chance that LA at 2 could go Drysdale, could go defense, and maybe one of those high-end forwards could fall to the Red Wings at 4?
I believe in the post-lottery press conference, they said there were 4 players they were going to be discussing, that being LA. But practically speaking, they're going to be debating between Quinton Byfield and Tim Stützle. They have 3+ months to discuss this. And, the unique thing about this draft, should it be held in mid or so October, is if the European League start on time, we'll have some more information on some of those players. If the colleges start on time, we're going to see a guy like Jake Sanderson potentially have 3 or 4 games before the draft happens. We're going to have a World Junior Camp in Michigan in a few weeks, theoretically, where you can get more information. So I would say right now the debate's between Byfield and Stützle, but things could change.
If things could change, then let's go number 4. It plays out with the top 3 are gone. Then it does,
Sure.
as I said, get interesting. Do you see Red Wings need help all over the board? Obviously, we know that.
Right.
Do you see that? Do you see them going with Drysdale? Is Drysdale that good?
He is that good, and he's a very reasonable consideration at 4. I don't think he's the clear pick at 4. I think he's one of a number of reasonable choices you could pick from. The other reasonable choices that would come to mind would be the 2 Swedish forwards in Alexander Holtz and Lucas Raymond, the 2 OHL centers in Cole Perfetti and Marco Rossi, the NTDP defender in Jake Sanderson, and the Russian goalie Yaroslav Askarov. I think if they took Drysdale at 4, you're getting a guy who I think is going to be a top pair defenseman. I don't know if he's going to be a star, but I think he realistically projects as a top pair defenseman who can play in a lot of situations. But like Kenya said, they kind of need everything. So I wouldn't say they need that defenseman. They need a center. They need scorers. They probably need a goalie. They need everything.
Certainly. I want to ask you about some of the players you just mentioned. Just a little bit of a brief
Sure.
synopsis, because you watch him play. Let's start with Drysdale. I mean, everything I hear, great first pass, high hockey IQ. Seems to be the complete package. Right-handed shot, which now the Red Wings, if they draft Drysdale, would have an abundance of, but can never have enough of right-handed shooting defensemen. But your thoughts on Drysdale?
Yeah, he is an elite skater and has elite hockey sense, and those two attributes combine to allow him to do a lot of really good things at both ends of the rink. I wouldn't call him a dynamic offensive player, but he creates a lot of offense just due to how quickly he transitions the puck up the ice. I think with Drysdale, when you are looking at him, I think he's going to be a great NHL player, but I would say when you have the 5'11" defenseman who plays that kind of style, there aren't a lot of direct comparables in the NHL that come to mind initially. So he's an interesting guy to debate. I know some teams who are extremely high on him and some who wonder if there's just enough offense there to become that really cornerstone kind of piece for an NHL team. But I could see him becoming, that 23 to 20 or so minute eater who plays on both special teams.
One guy who has a very much a Red Wing kind of connection in a strange way because he plays for Saginaw, and obviously Jimmy Devellano and Chris Osgood are part of that organization. Is Cole Perfetti? He seems again to be a guy that he's a high end forward, and they need a high end forward.
Yeah, and he's just incredibly skilled, and he's an elite playmaker. And even though I would say his vision is his best attribute, he scored 37 goals in each of the last 2 seasons in the OHL. Just a really fun offensive player to watch. He did play center for a good chunk of the second half of the season, and I'm not 100% sure he's a center in the National Hockey League, but I think you can talk to some people who think he's got a chance to play the middle. Really competitive kid. The only thing is he's not that big and he's not that fast. But I remember a similar profile on a guy that Steve Eisman picked in the 3rd round many years ago in Braden Point, who when he was in junior, he was this really skilled, really intelligent, small guy who wasn't that fast. Now you got him in the 3rd round, not in the 4th overall. There's, you had to make different considerations. You got to get a lot of attributes when you're picking a number 4. But I love Cole Perfetti. I think he's going to be a really good top 6 in the National Hockey League who's going to put up a lot of points, even though he may not have every single attribute you want.
Another player that is getting a lot of play here is Marco Rossi from Ottawa in the OHL. Again, not the biggest guy, but highly skilled.
A lot of skill. Extremely smart player. I wouldn't say he's an elite skater, but I'd say he's quicker than a guy like, say, Perfetti. He's a good, really elusive skater. He's on the smaller side, around 5'9", but he's super competitive. Ottawa, played him a ton because he's just such a reliable player that coaches easily can fall in love with due to how often, he just wins battles despite his size, how reliable he is at both ends of the rink. I think when you look at this draft where he fits, he's a guy I think that does a lot of things really well. If he's not an elite skater for that size, I'd say if you kind of compare him to Lucas Raymond or Cole Perfetti, he may not have as much skill, but is not far behind, and he put up massive numbers his 2 years in the OHL. So there is a lot of offense there. There's a lot that a coach is going to love, and I think he's going to be a really good NHL player.
I want to go to a couple of more forwards, because number 4 is so wide open, and you mentioned it.
Yep.
Lucas Raymond didn't have the greatest year in the Swedish leagues, but obviously I saw him play last year. I think I saw you there too at the summer showcase a little bit. What can you tell us about Lucas?
Yeah, Lucas, he didn't put up big numbers this year, but Frölunda, his Swedish Hockey League team, was a really deep organization offensively. So it wasn't because of the player, it was just due to lack of opportunity more. And I expect next year he'll get a lot of opportunity. This guy is just elite skill. From what I've seen from this class, he has as much skill as anybody in the draft class. He makes so many unique plays. He can break a shift open with his puck handling and his vision. But he's a 5'11" guy with average foot speed. So those are the limitations. I think the comp you kind of hope for when you see a guy like that is maybe he could be Mitch Marner, but I would say maybe Marner's a little bit better of a skater. But Raymond, I love watching Raymond. He's my number 4 prospect in the draft on my list because I just think the skill is just so elite. And I think he's a guy, when you look at the potential of anyone of the guys that are going to be there at the 4 spot, likely are going to be there. I can't say any guarantees right now. He's the guy that I think, okay, if anybody could be a star outside that top 3, Raymond is the one that strikes me as that guy.
Wow, that's pretty high praise considering the talent in this draft and how deep it is, especially at forward. His fellow countryman Alexander Holtz, who's a pure goal scorer, a pure sniper, he's somebody that intrigues me because Corey, I watch the Red Wings all the time. They definitely need people who can put the puck in the net.
Yeah, and he's a great player, because of that elite shot, but he has elite skill as well. His puck handling is almost as good as his shot. I've been watching this guy for many, many years, and I can just there's a long list of highlight reels that he's been on over his young career, just due to how skilled that player is. And he had a great year in Sweden. He was one of the best 17-year-olds I've ever seen in the SHL in terms of production, and just the fact that he looked like a middle 6, top 6 forward right away at 17. His skating needs to get a little bit better. It's not great, but he's also not that small, and he's very strong and he's competitive. And he's a guy, you talk to NHL scouts around the league, they think he's a guy who could make the jump possibly in a year. And I think he's another, like all those other tough forwards, he's a guy I think is going to be a really good NHL player for a long time.
All right, I want to go. If Steve's going to Mo Sider us this year and just go out of the box, although I don't really think Sider was that much of a stretch, but we,
No.
it's easy to say that now. But with that said, I think that the Red Wings are intrigued very much by Askarov, the Russian goaltender. Would they go number 4, or is that just too high a pick on a goaltender?
I think on talent, you can make the argument. I wouldn't say most NHL teams I talk to think he's a top 5 pick. I think there are some I talk to who think he's in that consideration because he has such a unique goalie. He's elite athleticism, elite hockey sense. He just does amazing things in whatever event or league he goes to outside of that 1 week stretch in the World Juniors this past season. And I've been watching this guy for years, and he's just not only just impressed, he's just usually been dominant whenever I've watched this guy, just because he's just such a unique athlete and an incredibly smart and aggressive goalie and competitive goalie as well. I think the question on Askarov is not going to be whether you think the talent is worth it, because I think you can really easily argue that he's a top 10, if not maybe even slightly higher player on talent. It's that he plays with the SKA organization, the richest organization in the KHL, and you're going to have to find a way to get him away from that organization, which I think he will. When I've talked to Askarov, he's expressed interest in the NHL and being an NHL goalie. But he plays for SKA, and that's going to be a factor when you have a number 4 overall pick.
Okay, and another goaltender, and a lot of Guelph Storm fans here in the metropolitan Detroit area, Nico Doss, a goaltender. If Askarov's gone, and he probably will be, with the Red Wings in that second round. I mean, they have 6 picks in the top 65. Do they take one of those picks after 4? Get a goalie? Is Nico Doss that guy?
Maybe. I would say when I talk to NHL folks around the league, the number 2 goalie is a little bit more wide open. Some would mention him. Someone mentioned Drew Comessa with the NTDP, Joel Blomqvist in Finland, Jan Bednash in the Czech Republic. I would say it's wide open, but Dawes is in that conversation. He had a great year. He was one of the best, not just goalies, but players in the CHL, albeit as a re-entry player, made the World Junior team. He's big, he's smart, steady. I like him. I wouldn't say I'm over the moon about him, but he's a good player, and he's in that mix to be the number 2 goalie.
All right, Corey, I know we're running out of time with you, and I really appreciate your time. I could sit here and talk to you all day, but the Red Wings from 32 to 65, they have 3 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks. As I said, Steve Yzerman is known to get those kind of really impact players in those rounds. Can you give us a few names that we should look out for? And I know I'm asking you to go from 32 to 65. That's a wide range, but some guys that we should look forward to.
Yeah, a couple come to mind, particularly at that first pick in the second round where you're probably hoping to get the most impact out of. I really like Jeremy Poirier. He's a defenseman in St. John, the QMJHL. He's a really dynamic player, just a ton of skill, big-time shot, can skate well. He's not that small, but he's a defenseman who's quite problematic in his own end. So that's why I think he could be there in the second round. But in terms of the offensive toolkit, it's upper half of the first round quality. And when you pick that kind of guy in the second round, you can kind of hope that you can work with some of the components there. I think of players like Thomas Chabot or Shea Theodore who had similar profiles, and sometimes those guys bust and sometimes they become really good players. So that's why I'm excited about him. I see a lot of talent there. Another one is Sam Colangelo, who plays in Chicago in the USHL. Was one of the leading goal scorers and point scorers in that league. He's a forward with size and high-end skill and hockey sense who can shoot the puck. It's a really exciting, I think, toolkit package, even if he's an average skater. And I guess one more that I would name would be Ozzy Weisblatt. He plays in Prince Albert in the WHL. I thought he was really good the last 2 years I've watched him. His skill, his hockey sense, and his competitiveness always stand out to me. This is a guy who he's worked hard. Almost every time I've watched him, he stands out with his work ethic, and he has a really unique backstory as well, someone who's overcome adversity. So those are some guys that come to mind right off the top of my head.
All right, to kind of wrap this up, when we do look at this draft, from everyone I read, that it is one of the deepest drafts, and it's really deep and forward. Would that be your characterization of how the 2020 draft is? Is that it's really high end forwards?
Yeah, I would say, in general, at the top of the draft, you're getting a lot of guys with a lot of elite skill at forward. I might push back on the characterization that this one, it's an extraordinary draft. I tend to find most drafts tend to range around the same talent level, barring overwhelming evidence. But I really like the forward group. I think at 4, if you're not going for Jamie Drysdale, you're not going for Jake Sanderson, you're going to get a guy who I think has a really strong chance to be a top-line forward in the National Hockey League, to be a guy who can be a driving force for your top line or your top power play unit, and provide a lot of skill and offense.
Corey Pruman, the prospects writer for The Athletic, I really have to say this to you. I mean, I could talk to you all day. I mean, we've just scratched the surface. I have papers all over my office here, different players, things that I wanted to ask you. We didn't even get down to your tier breakdown, which I find fascinating. We're going to have you on. I think we're going to have a lot of time on our hands here the next couple of months. So we've just scratched the surface, but I really do appreciate your time. You do an excellent job. And thank you for joining us today on The Headliner. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate the kind words. Thanks for having me.
All right, there you have it there, Daniela. This is The Headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite, the original light beer with great taste and only 96 calories, available for delivery. Let's be honest, we knew, even though the Red Wings dropped to 4th, they were going to get a good player at number 4. And based on what Corey said, they're definitely going to get one. Thanks.
Thank you, Art. Yes, we are going to get a great player. The Red Wings are going to get a great player, and we're definitely going to need to have Corey back on the show as the draft gets closer. Right now, you guys, it's time to get into Let's Socialize, presented by AAA. Carly is going to take the reins on this one. I know she's been all over social media taking your guys' questions, and I bet she has some good ones today.
Thanks, Nhl. That is right. I have a few questions for you guys from the fans. First is for Art. And Art, I know you're going to go on a rant about this one. Is the good one. Chris Pame asks, any chance Wings trade Larkin and 4th pick overall and one other player for a number 1 pick?
Wow, that's an intriguing question. I don't think so. I think that you have to look at it, even though Lafreniere, as far as skill set, might be just a cut above where Dylan is at, then you have to replace Dylan Larkin. And do you really want to do that? I don't think you do, what's that old expression, paying Peter to rob Paul or whatever it is? It just doesn't, in the long run, it doesn't make sense. If Lafreniere were in the class of an Austin Matthews and a Connor McDavid, I mean, can't miss generational talents, then I would say yes. Everything that I've read, as great as he is, he's kind of a cut below. So I probably wouldn't make that trade. It's really, really tough, I think, to let go of Dylan Larkin. Not only so much what he means on the ice, but what he means off the ice too. He's one of us. He's a Detroiter, and I think that as far as passion, love for this area, for Southeast Michigan, what it means to be a Red Wing, what it means to be a Michiganian or Michigander, or however you want to pronounce what residents from Michigan are, then it doesn't get better than Dylan. And then I think he'll only elevate his game. I think he'll only elevate his passion once Steve puts the C on him. And if that happens, I think that at this point, there might not be many untouchables on the Red Wings, truly. And there probably shouldn't be. But I would assume that on current guys on the roster, I don't want to get into prospects untouchable or not, but current guys on the roster, I would say that, obviously Dylan is right there, and the BT Express. Obviously, Big Tony, you're not going to trade him either. But I would say even Tyler Bertuzzi, and I know that's going to upset some fans. If the right deal comes around, I don't think there's many untouchables. I think Dylan's one. I think the BT Express is another. And probably Philip Hronek too. I mean, maybe throw him in. They need somebody on the back end, but no, I would not make that deal, Chris. It's intriguing, and you can't put anything past Steve because he's aggressive. But I think at the end of the day, when Steve sits down and kind of cools down from the draft on Friday, I don't think it's going to be a knee-jerk reaction. I needed that number 1 pick. I'm trading Larks. I don't think that's going to happen.
So no deal from Art. I dig it. All right.
No,
For Daniela.
I like it, but no deal.
Got it. All right. And for Daniela, if you made your own baseball team, what would you name it?
Ooh, this
That's
is
a good
interesting.
I know.
Yeah,
It's a fun one.
I really get great answers to these questions, so I always feel like I have to follow him, and my answer is probably not going to be as good as Art's just was. But hey, when I think of a baseball team, one thing I think of maybe like naming them after some sort of pitch, maybe the curve or sliders. I don't know if that one really works. The screwballs that
Those are
might
good.
work. I don't know. I like the curve.
Those are
That's a nice
like, I'm
one.
impressed.
And I can tell you one thing: if I pick the screwballs, Art would be the general manager.
Oh,
Well,
100%.
thank you, Daniela. See, I thought, Carly, that Daniela would say, big, strong daiquiris that I love to drink at Comerica Park. I think the daiquiris would be an interesting name. Pardon me, Carly. I'm sorry, I missed that.
I said that would be too long of a name.
Well, mine, of course, would be pre-mixed margaritas.
I'm laughing because Art said, Carly, I missed what you said. And then right when Carly started to say it again, Art talked and probably missed it for the second time.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. I'm not hurt. All right, Art, we've got another question for you. The only way, this is my favorite one. If the only way you could become Steve Yzerman's assistant was for you to enroll at Michigan State University, would you?
Well, I would probably hold my nose and do that. But I can tell you for a fact, Steve wouldn't allow me. He would know that would just break me up to a point of it wouldn't be worthless. I would be useless as his assistant if I had to enroll at MSU. And so Steve would probably say, look, we'll figure out a way, Art. We'll figure out a way. I can't do that to you. I will not allow you to be a Spartan. No way, no how. But if it were up to me, I would definitely do it. Hey, let's be honest. I already know I'm going to 4.0 that school. I mean, that's going to be, the classes are going to be easy. My problem is going to be staying out of the local establishments. It's like, I got finals tomorrow.
Don't go to Harvard.
Yeah, stay away.
Back in the day, most of my friends, a lot of them went to Michigan State. And so I would go up there on weekends because Ann Arbor, and I found this out the hard way, they're really students there. I mean, they study like all the time. I mean, I got there. I was a pretty good student in high school. I figured, I can, kind of skip through. My first pop quiz taught me that if I'm not hitting the books at Michigan, you're gonna flunk out. But I would go up to Michigan State and party there all the time on weekends. Because Ann Arbor was just like a morgue a lot of times, even on, football Saturdays that were a little different, but they study a lot.
Right.
Their student, as one professor explained it to me, these are serious students, Art, and I suggest that you get to be serious. And he was right. And I did buckle down. But I would always go up to Michigan State. I always liked it. I don't even know if it's around. I think it was at Dooley's in East Lansing, or there was a bar that I always went to. And I am going to tell you something. It was really something. It was just, we're talking a long time ago. We're talking, my gosh, I don't even want to admit it, but we're talking.
Back when I was at agricultural school.
We're almost talking 50 years. So, let's just put it this way. It was so long ago, I would pull up with my horse and buggy, to walk in. And as long as my horse wasn't drinking, I could drive home. It was a long time ago, but I love East Lansing. I really do. I love East Lansing. I love going there. It's a lot of fun. It's a good school. I tease you both, just because it's so much fun to do. But I guarantee you, and I know, Steve watches this. Steve watches this show all the time. So I know that he's probably going to text me and say, I would never do that to you. You would never have to go to Michigan State in order to become Steve Eiserman's assistant. Now, the problem is actually convincing Steve to make me his assistant. I don't think that's the question. How that, because I don't think that's going to happen. Could you imagine me hanging out with Steve every single day? Hey, Steve, what's going on? What are we going to do today? What kind of trades are we going to make?
I always remember I'd see Art following Steve into the locker room down that hallway. They'd be standing in the locker room doors and Art wouldn't go in, but he'd be keeping Steve there at the front of the locker room talking to him. Cracked me up.
Yeah,
I will say though, Art, my
question,
first year. Go ahead.
No, go on. No, I'm good. Your first year,
I was
what?
gonna say my first year at Michigan State University, I was on the dean's list, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a lot of fun being in college, going to MSU." I wasn't on the dean's list after my first year at MSU, I'll have to say, but I was a very good student. Never missed a Thursday class to go to Burgerama. I was good. I had a good work-life balance, I should say, school-life balance.
Notice how
right,
Danielle.
moving on.
Notice how Danielle. Well, wait, Carly. Notice how Daniela is quiet about being a good student. What was your Michigan State career like, Miss Dackery? What was your college career like?
Well, it wasn't daiquiris.
Is that even a real
then.
degree?
But, yes, it is a real degree. I did pretty well. I did not make the dean's list. I'll admit that. I think I did one semester. I was a good student, though. I did all my work. I made sure all my work was done before I got to the fun stuff, okay?
Right. I
did skip
That's how you have to live.
Yeah, likely story.
All right. Last question is for all of us. But first, we'll start with Daniela and then go to you, Art, and then I'll finish it off. All right. Last question is, do you think the Tigers can win 35 games in the shortened season? So, Daniela, again, I'll start with you.
All right. First of all, Chris, thank you for all of your questions. We appreciate you always watching The Word on Woodward. This question is interesting because that's at this point, 35 games would be over 500 for the Tigers, which if you would have asked me in a regular season if they were going to win half their games, I would have said no. But with this season, I think we've touched on it a couple times that it's possible when you go on a 10-game win streak, right? Like let's say you're hot for 10 games. That's 10 games. That's a huge chunk of your season right there. And if you stay hot, it's definitely possible for the Tigers to win 35 games. But you got to look at the flip side of that too, because if you go on a 10-game losing streak, then there's no chance for you to come back. So it's a really interesting question. Do I think it's possible? Yes. Do I think it will happen? I don't know. I can't be confident in that.
I appreciate the honesty. Okay. I know you're going to give us nothing but honesty.
Yes, I except when it comes to her college career. I will say this, that I think that if the Tigers win 35 games, that would mean they're 10 games above 500, right? 35 and 25 and roughly 60 games is a third of the schedule. So if I got everything correct, that would mean that they're over a 100-win team in the regular season, but this isn't going to be the regular season. So I think anything's possible. I think the Tigers, if their pitching comes through and and the hitters can find their groove a little quickly, I would say that could happen because I don't think the pitching, once it finds its way, I don't think it's going to suddenly get worse. I think it's only going to get better. So if their pitching comes through, and this is going to have to be from day one, from game 1 through 60, if they have pitching complete, if it's consistent throughout, and then the hitters catch up, can the Tigers be above 10 games above 500, 35 and 25? I guess it's possible. And if it is, then they're definitely at least a wild card team, don't you think? I think that, they're on the cusp of the playoffs. The last couple of weeks of the season would be a lot of fun.
I have to agree with Art. So this is my answer. This season's going to be anyone's season. I remember Daniel Norris and Matt Boyd talking. Daniel Norris had Boyd on the drip, and they were talking about getting back into the season and it being a shortened season. They said who's to say we can't make the World Series playoffs? Like, who's to say that we can't win X amount of games? I mean, I know the trials and tribulations and the hardships you go through, and that long of a season, like that's a lot of games. 162 games, that's a lot of games. So if you shorten that and give them 60 games, maybe they'll be in the best physical shape and the best mental state. Like, I guess it's really anyone's season. So I don't know if I'm being too optimistic, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see a different team this shortened season. Who knows?
Yeah, Carly, I totally see what you're saying. And I don't think you're being overly optimistic, but you just have to hope that everything is going to fall in the Tigers' direction. You know what I mean? Like, you're still going to get the good teams that are going to be really good. And I don't know. It just seems like they can't have any injuries. That would be detrimental if somebody key to their lineup gets hurt. So I appreciate the optimism, though, and I don't think you're overly optimistic.
I'm trying, because I know all these guys have had the same amount of downtime. They haven't been in the facilities. You can't go to a ballpark at the local high school or whatever it is. But everyone's been in the same kind of situation where they haven't had access to all of the amenities that they get at the facility. So, maybe they're all kind of at the same level right now without having that training. So I don't know. I should be cautiously optimistic. So I'm going to reel myself in a little bit, but Art's raising his hand.
Well, no. I agree with you. I mean, look, it's like when we had Andy Dirks on, we just talked to him. I mean, usually baseball is a marathon. 182 games is all, or 162 games. God, I just added 20 games to their schedule. 162 games is a lot of games. I think we know that. 60 games. Remember, we're talking about baseball players. These guys have played baseball their whole lives. That's all they've done. They're players. That's what they do. A 60-game season is a sprint for them. It's the tortoise and the hare. Well, you want to be the hare in a 60-game season. And so I think they know. They're young, they're enthusiastic. Maybe they don't know any better. It's like Andy Dirks said. It's time to get at her or get going, or in his Kansas drawl. And that's what they should do. I mean, this is a great opportunity for them. Just go out and play and let the chips fall where they may. I from a Tiger perspective and where the Tigers are at, I think a 60-game schedule is actually a pretty good scenario for them to really focus in. They don't have to focus that long on 60 games and get the job done. And who knows? Carly, you're right. Who knows? But as long as they stay healthy, as Daniela said, the Tigers, hey, they could compete.
All right, I think we all had really good answers to that. So I'm going to end it on that note. Danielle, take it away. I appreciate you guys having me on. I appreciate everyone's questions.
Thank you, Carly. A big thank you to AAA for presenting Let's Socialize this week and every week right here on the Word on Woodward. We have come to the end of the show again today. And guys, I have a lot of information for you because it's an exciting week for both the Tigers and Wings, even though we don't exactly have live sports, but there are some classic games on Fox Sports Detroit again. Tonight, you can watch Kenny Rogers and his 200th win and 8-home-run game against the Cubs back in 2012. That's a great game to watch. And of course, the Tigers are going to have their happy hour tomorrow. So I'm sure they're going to talk a little bit about some of the games that they have been watching, which will be awesome. So that virtual happy hour tomorrow at 6 p.m. Some of your favorites from the 2006 season, including Nate Robertson, Todd Jones, and Craig Monroe. And of course, that will be hosted by FSD's Matt Shepard. So that will be really, really cool. And will you be tuning in, Art? I know you and Shep are buddies, so you've got to tune in and watch this happy hour, don't you?
If it's virtual and it's a party, I'm there. Yes, I definitely will be tuning in. Yeah, and I'm really interested to see what Craig Monroe's. I'm going to see what Craig Monroe's going to wear. I'll bet you he's going to be really dressed up.
I was thinking about this when we had him on the show. It was actually probably a couple months back at this point, but he was talking about his opening day suit. So are we going to get to see that suit on opening day 2.0?
I hope so. I mean, let's be honest. I'm sure it's in his closet, under like a cleaner's bag or something, a suit bag. No one's touching it, and it probably has a little tag on it. Oh, do not open until opening day. And I'm sure we're going to see that suit, and I can't wait to see it. I know it's going to be an exquisite look for Craig Monroe.
Definitely. It will be. And there's some exciting stuff on the Wings front, too. It's going to be a Winged Wheel watch party, which is going to be tomorrow at 3 p.m. on Facebook Live. Jonathan Bernier is going to join Carly during the live watching of the Winged Wheel episodes 4 and 5. Again, the Winged Wheel is a documentary series. All of those episodes are available on YouTube if you haven't checked them out. But make sure you're tuning into the watch party. Jonathan Bernier will weigh in. It will be really cool. And Art, we've talked about it a few times. The Winged Wheel it turned out fantastic. It's a great behind the scenes look at what was really a tough season for the Red Wings.
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, it doesn't really pull any punches. It's not trying to glorify a team that had such a down year, but it is a true representation of what it's like, what these guys go through, how much they care, how much they want to win, and the frustrations that they feel when, things aren't going their way. Again, we had Dan Manis on last week, I believe it was. All the shows, they're so much fun. They all meld into one big party for me. But with that said, yeah, very outstanding job. Manis did a great job on that. And I always look forward to it. I've seen it all. It's a wonderful series.
Art, we have one more special shout out. We wished Dana Wakiji a happy birthday. We've got to shout out Tigers producer who contributes a ton to the Word on Woodward, Matt Sohnfeld, and his wife Holly welcomed a baby girl over the weekend. Baby girl's name is Mia. So we are so happy for you, Matt, and thank you for all that you do. And even though we can't wait to have you back, I hope you enjoy the time with your new baby girl. There you go. Applause from Art too. Applause. All right, guys, that's all we have for you today. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your live notifications so you don't miss a second of the Word on Woodward every Tuesday and Thursday starting at noon. On Thursday, we've got a lot lined up for you. Dan Dickerson is going to join us, Hockey Night in Canada's Harna Ryan Singh, who is going to be an excellent guest, is also going to join us, and Chris McCoskey will talk more about the Tigers and their return to spring training. So, guys, make sure you're tuning in to the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond on Thursday starting at noon. Me and Art will see you guys then.